we are for a special edition of the Mockingcast. A Monday night. It's like Monday Night Football, but completely different, other than the fact that we're taping on Monday evening. I have with me, live in studio, my lovely wife, Lindy Jones.
Hi, babe.
And coming to us from Virginia, Charlottesville, properly, or Charlottesville, Virginia, I was going to say specifically, in particular, whatever have you. Not in the same house, but the same town. Will McDavid, Mockingbird staff alumni, all around gentleman and scholar, and the animating force of the zeitgeist of Mockingbird, DZ, David Zahl. Gentlemen, last night was a big night, and lady. Gentleman and lady.
I could be a gentleman tonight if you'd like, babe.
Last night was big, was big. I mean, this was the Game of Thrones season finale.
Well, Will, what did you think? I'm dying to hear from you. We just posted a long review that Will wrote, and he's the maester, if you will, in my Game of Thrones horizon.
He's the maester, so we're making nerd jokes already. He's the maester. Oh yeah, he's the maester. You know, he's when I need a raven flown my way, he's the guy that.
Yeah.
If I need a bit of milk of the puppy.
Got to forge your link, Scott. But I think last night I was blown away by it. I thought it was awesome. The camera work was really, really cool. Love the director who did it. Thought last week was great too. But this was just so much going on, and they managed to tie it all together. And it was really satisfying in a way that I feel like that most of the time with this show. But it was really, really satisfying.
Will, where are you with the critique that we skipped over too many steps to get to things sort of got rushed to get to sort of destinations?
Yeah, I can see that. On the one hand, I mean, a lot's moved forward. Things have been rushed. And I was just rewatching season 4 with a friend who's in town and isn't caught up a few days ago. And everything was moving slowly. And it was nice to see some more kind of drawn out conversations, a little bit more nuanced, stuff like that. But on the one hand, too, a lot of them are sort of back in the same place. The Starks have retaken Winterfell. The Lannisters have Riverrun again. And I think a lot of people have pointed that out. But yeah, I think it's really hard when you're a showrunner and you don't know where the narrative's going, don't know where the story's going. And I think one thing they've advanced a ton in terms of the plot, but in terms of the character dynamics, they haven't necessarily pushed that forward that much. You know, Jaime is basically exactly where he should have been 6 or 7 episodes ago, which is sort of caught between the Cersei ideal and the Brienne ideal, you know, trying to figure out where his loyalties lie. And for some of those central character problems, apart from probably Sansa and Daenerys, those are the only ones where I've seen the characters pushed along a lot. You could argue Jon because he's melancholy, but I just don't think we see enough from him to really say that.
So there was a review of this in the New York Times, and this is my favorite line in the review. It says that they're talking about Cersei and kind of her trajectory and the whole story. Or ask Jaime, who arrived in King's Landing just in time to see Cersei claim the Iron Throne in her sinister leather power frock, looking like a cross between Maleficent and thin white Duke era David Bowie. Yeah. And then they go on to say, did he look happy this beloved sister had finally achieved her dream of absolute power? He did not. Instead, the Kingslayer, who had seemed torn this season between his twisted devotion and nobler impulses, seemed to be wondering if he might one day be called upon to be a Queenslayer.
Do you think that's where this is heading? Lindy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's going to have to take her out. She's gone crazy. She's doing mass murder in the streets. She took out a whole religion. You can't have that stuff. The Kingslayer won't stand for that.
No, he is. Jaime Lannister does have these flashes of honor.
Yeah, he's a loyal guy, but I think he knows, and when enough is enough. He's like Arya. He takes out what needs to be the guys that need to be taken out.
Yeah.
The Fraser are out of hand. It's time.
It's time. It is time.
It's time to go.
Sometimes you need a Kingslayer. You need a Kingslayer with a gorgeous blonde mane.
You need a good assassin.
Yeah, I mean, he has these flashes of honor. I think one really interesting thing about Jamie, if you read his entry, in the book, his kind of record in the history book about himself, it's pretty humiliating. But at the same time, when you see him in the show now, even though he is on the more honorable side, he's still sort of the cool kid. He has to diss Walter Frey about not being enough of a warrior. He has to kind of be really sharp and witty and on and project this power. So I think it's fun to see somebody who's legitimately got a lot of kind of panache, but is also in this sort of form of repentance at the same time.
I want to see he and Brenda spin-off buddy comedy. Where they kind of, like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of thing, like where they kind of, that would be to me like the ultimate, like that last scene in the second last episode when they're kind of parting and they wave hands like, hi buddy.
Yeah, but we didn't find out where Brienne ended up or whatever happened with the Hound. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to be doing something with the Hound next season, but it felt a little, as good as it was to see him, it felt a little pointless. But maybe I'm not seeing the whole picture here. I'm clearly not seeing the whole picture. That's actually the problem with reviewing TV shows, period, because you just don't know anything could happen next. Like the whole Battle of the Bastards, the chief criticism was, why on earth did Sansa not tell Jon that this was going to happen? Or that there was even the slightest possibility that there was this huge army coming to save them, and that's not all these. If they just held on for like 2 more days, then maybe they'd be in much better shape.
Did you guys see the Game of Jones where Seth Meyers watched it with, who's the Saturday Night Live actress?
Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones. Like, he watched the show, and then at the point where Jon Snow in the second last episode is, but it looks like he's gonna die. Oh my God, you're a warrior, Jon. You're a warrior. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. Oh, that boy got 9 lives. I love you, Rick. You got a zigzag. You got a zigzag.
Well, they then they had Sansa just say, "Oh yeah, sorry about that."
Yeah,
my
bro.
bad.
Sorry,
Yeah,
my
apologies.
bad. You know how Littlefinger is. He might not have showed up. I don't want to get your hopes up.
I know. I've just become this totally large and in charge kind of stone-faced, boss lady out of the blue after being a sniveling idiot for 4th season, and then. Because it suits whatever's going on. And, it is kind of nice to see her sort of vindicated, I guess. But that to me was they were, that was a little too late. But that's small potatoes. I think, Will, I'm with you. It was one incredible set piece after another. And that kind of sense of, righteousness, that sense of satisfaction was palpable.
Do you feel like I feel, Howard Stern made this observation recently that it's the second to last episode in so many of the serial dramas that becomes the big one. That I felt like, I felt like the finale was amazing, but in some sense, the table was set in the Battle of the Bastards. By the way, it's Leslie Jones was at the end with the dog scene. Leslie Jones was like, oh, you can hear it. I wish I was nicer to people in my life. But, how do you think somebody's going to develop when every day your father says, this is my bastard, Ramsay. Hello, this is my bastard. That's just tough on you psychologically, I would think.
Oh, Will, everything all right there?
Yeah, everything's good.
We just got treated to a lot of noise sound effects. That's what's happening.
Apologies there.
Sorry, Scott. We can edit this out, I guess. Where were we?
We were talking about the fact that Ramsay is a bastard and was told that way. That it was said. I can't imagine the psychological import I was saying, Will, of that basically every time your father introduces you, hello, this is my
Will, what did you think about the some more moral gray areas that they kind of reestablished a little bit in the last episode?
Yeah, I thought it was really well done because we have this sort of evil faith militant, and I think just with sort of the Zeitgeist right now, that was how everybody was going to take it, and certainly they were pretty bad, apart from just being, not just being out of step with modern norms, but they were also, I think, did some bad stuff. But
shame.
You see her,
shame.
Yeah, you see her coming in to kind of torment Unella, and you're like, yeah, this is great. Cersei's my girl. She's getting back at these fundamentalists, and then all of a sudden, there's a like 8-foot zombie in the room who killed everybody's fourth favorite character a couple episodes ago, and they're screaming, and you suddenly realize, like, yeah, I really can't root for any of these people that much, but I can root for most of them, all of them maybe, now that Ramsey's dead a little bit.
No, nobody was rooting for Ramsey.
I know,
Yeah.
even the High Sparrow, definitely, there were a few episodes there where he was making the most sense, and that was what was so entertaining always on with the reviews I was reading in the AV Club and everything. Everyone would be like, the despicable High Sparrow who's the only one saying anything, good about privilege. He's talking. He's really wise about privilege, but he's maybe his gender politics are way off, and they were clearly trying to play the audience with that character. What do you guys think the final analysis? Because at first he kind of comes off almost like a Pope Francis kind of guy. What in the final analysis? What
Pope
do you
Francis, except he's a jerk.
I think he's
like if Pope
manipulative.
Francis kept his simplicity and became Torquemada.
No, but at the very beginning, it seemed like he was, when they first
Right.
introduced him, he seemed to be like a paragon of virtue, and he was like feeding soup to people.
We need breathing room.
I think
that's kind of how people got sucked into his religion, though.
Yeah.
And I feel like it often is. I mean, I think one of the lessons of Martin in Game of Thrones is that it's not necessarily people trying to do evil that makes stuff messed up, but it's these misplaced ideas of good, just protect your children. Cersei is a great mother. That didn't work out. And neither did the High Sparrow's humility. And I think it really paid off for them to go out on a limb a little bit and probably spend more money than they might have for a one-season character and get Jonathan Pryce, because otherwise it just would have been way too easy to sort of shunt him into the category of a charlatan. And I think pretty revealingly, when Cersei tries to get Unella to confess to being a charlatan, this really reductive account of religion, of the faith of the Seven, Unella says, "I'm ready to go to my God." So there's sincerity there. And I do think they probably are doing a lot of good work for some of the poor of Westeros, the small folk, if you will. And
we're so much on
that's what people said about Mussolini. Like it's very good of the poor. It's interesting because Cersei, it seems like the person that of all the main characters right now, seems the most malevolent. Like there's not a noble, even the children thing. It's like it's a protect your children, but in a way that doesn't really honor any of their subjectivity or agency. I just think she seems like an exception to the rule in that, and maybe Ramsey too. But I mean, she's a character that is increasingly hard to be sympathetic to. I mean, I think that like with most of the characters, there's a lot of simul justus et peccator. There's a torture. With Cersei, it just gets more and more self-absorbed peccator. I mean, like it's it's just dark.
Well, I agree. I think in the books she's just gone completely mad, and like that's the insanity is more pronounced in the books. And this was the first time, this episode was the first time where I felt like she's cutting herself off from any emotion. And it was just like with the power frock that she's wearing and looking like Bowie. I mean, all of a sudden she looks like a supervillain in a way that she hasn't really before. And I don't know. I've never. I will say all the reviews I've read have been. They've made their point at this that about women being capable of extreme violence and extreme evil, and you sort of. I'm ready for them to back off it a little bit and show that women can also be kind and like sweet, because it's just like one weak man getting killed by another strong woman, just after one after
Real
another
life, man.
after another.
Real life.
Yeah, there you go, Lindy.
I mean,
That's a straight up dope.
Theon, Jon Snow, Loras. Is there a single brother here that's not just
Brothers
being
will let you
constantly
down.
consoled?
Yeah, brothers will let you down. It's the moral of the story. Your sister's going to take over, and your brothers will let you down.
Well, as I think, Will, as you told me, like there's this great sort of feminist overtone to his books. What did you say? It's a dragon queen leading a army of eunuchs against, and against the patriarchy of Westeros, right? What do you say?
Yeah. It was a great YouTuber who was talking about how this season has been a little kind of feminist, but they're not necessarily departing from the books in that. Because he says, I mean, it's about a dragon queen leading an army of castrated men across the sea to destroy a medieval culture, and it's not
Except now that
necessarily
culture is ruled by a woman.
Yeah, and like the worst woman of all time.
Yeah,
like
the meanest woman of all.
The meanest, yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm be interested to see where they take it. 14 episodes left. I don't see how they can do it, but I certainly think they got a better chance than George R. R. Martin.
Do we know it's 14 episodes left?
That's what they're saying right now, but George said it was going to be 7 books, and there's no possible chance it's going to be 7 books. I mean, Will, am I wrong?
I think there's no way he can tie up, because the show, like you said, in 14 seasons, in 14 episodes, it's going to be tough there. And George R. R. Martin's narrative is much more sprawling than the books, because half of what they've been doing this season is killing off his side characters and cutting away the narrative threads that aren't going anywhere. And
yeah, they really did some pruning in this episode. That was front and center.
You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Just blow up a building with a lot of side characters, and it takes care of a lot of plot lines you didn't want to have to worry about.
I'll miss Marjorie. I mean, she's like the only one of those aristocrats that actually could have a shot at ruling well. She would have been
not anymore.
Not anymore. She's gone.
And what's interesting, man? The Red Witch, man. She gets, okay, when we need her, she's good. When when we need her, we tolerate her. Get to resurrect Snow. Then she's out. Don't want to put her on trial. Diva, I'm like, dude, make up your mind on this woman. You've got a relationship of convenience with her. It's it's very strange.
Yeah, I agree. All of a sudden, we're sort of. She's got kind of misty-eyed at the end there, and you're kind of feeling sorry for her, and you're feeling like, whoa, Jon Snow, that's so mean that you're exiling her. But wait a second, you did just sacrifice a 12-year-old girl.
No, I love her answer. I mean, what were we doing? The horses were sacked. I mean, the times were hard.
Yeah, of course you had to kill the kid.
Wouldn't you have done it? Well, no.
Is Davos the unfallen man here? I guess he's the one. He's the one. He's always sort of doing and saying the right thing.
Yeah,
well, you spend that time as a smuggler, get your hand mutilated and stuff. You learn a few things.
You do, and yeah. Other than being humiliated on the Blackwater and made fun of for his kind of lowborn status and all of that, he actually is. Seems pretty capable. Not that he has any good ideas when they're plotting before the Battle of the Bastards in the tent, but he seems pretty capable nonetheless.
Yeah. Well. It was a very satisfying finale, as the last couple finales have been.
Yeah, and where are we going next? I mean, do we have don't we have basically all Targaryen? Isn't Tyrion probably part Targaryen through some kind of sexual assault, and then Jon Snow has a Targaryen thing? So are we gonna have 3 dragon riders? Is that gonna defeat?
I don't buy Tyrion because I feel like. I mean, don't want to disagree too much here because it could easily be true, but I just think that you can't have everybody be a hidden Targaryen, and at some point...
And they're not blonde.
That is a truism.
Why can't you?
Well, if the sort of great trope of fantasy is having the kind of outcasts and little guys save the world, if the Frodo Bagginses of the world are the ones that are going to make a difference... Eventually, rather than just having a bastard who's also a Targaryen and a dwarf who's also a secret Targaryen prince, eventually you just need to have a dwarf who's a cool character.
You think Tyrion is like a hobbit going bad, like hobbits going wild? He's much more fun than the hobbits.
He's not really very hobbitish. I mean, he doesn't have the Shire. He doesn't have any happy memories. The hobbits always have a happy home.
I value your counsel.
Yeah.
It's not. Was there sort of a romantic moment there between them? I thought maybe he was going to.
Maybe, yeah.
And same with Jon and Sansa. I was like, wait, where's this going?
My favorite part of this season, I think, though, was when the spider is talking to the other red priestess, and they're arguing, and Tyrion goes, My friend has a healthy skepticism toward religion. Like, Tyrion, I would just love this season Tyrion's one-liners.
I know it's both of those like eternal skeptics are the guys that are sitting there with the she who has been foretold and the dragons and all this stuff, and it is. I'm not sure in the long run we're going to remember this series at all for Martin's critique of religion. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think it's we're going to remember it because of the incredible amounts of intrigue and cool like just maneuvering that's going on.
Yeah, and I think like where Game of Thrones theologically is interesting, right? Is because on one level, he does a great job of crafting a thoroughly pagan world, right? Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of like you don't see some of the Judeo-Christian echoes that even you see in like Tolkien, as Tolkien's trying to think of a primeval narrative, you know, like Genesis 1 through 11 for Europe, you know, like what's the prehistory, but you still see some like non-pagan echoes there, like, but at the same time, so you get this thoroughly pagan religiosity, and yet you do get this simul justus et peccator, like you do get this sort of honest theological anthropology where the people in Game of Thrones, you know, the people you like can immediately degenerate into vindictive, you know, vengeful, obsessed people. And the people that you think are subhuman, like Jaime Lannister appears first, can become these people that have grace moments of nobility and compassion. And I think the most interesting, despite the paganism, like the kind of sinner and saint anthropology still doesn't get weeded out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you see a lot of theology of the cross too, in the way that, you know, Jaime only becomes a great character after he has this reversal, after his ego is based on being the best swordsman in Westeros, and he loses that. And I think you see a lot of these great characters suffering these big reversals, and that's one kind of problem of Cersei's is she won't let the reversal happen. She's got
a very low bottom, very, very low bottom.
in
AA speak. It's almost, is there a bottom? That doesn't look like there is one. It's just a gaping abyss.
I don't believe there is one. But another, I mean, maybe this is a change of subject, but another kind of thing with the theology of Game of Thrones, I think it was Paul Zahl who said that belief in the paranormal is sort of the first steps of religion. And Martin's doing that in a way, right? It's this awesome pagan culture and whatever, but the thing that makes us really interested in it is that there's these kind of awakening supernatural forces at play. And I feel like, you know, fantasy is being caught up in something larger than yourself, and the world of Westeros is gradually being enveloped by, you know, who's going to be Lord of Westeros doesn't really matter when there's going to be ice zombies bearing down on you in several months. So
is the whole thing about climate change?
No, Scott. It's about eschatology.
There you go.
It's about eschatology.
Yeah. What about? Do you think that the moment where they're talking about your God is an evil God because it would demand that kind of sacrifice of a child, is that a veiled critique of, or not so veiled critique on atonement and the cosmic child abuse trope that you hear carted around in regards to substitutionary atonement?
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
I don't know. I think what's interesting is he leaves you to the point where you can't really compare any of the religions to one that's in our world. And so you find yourself trying to figure out which one's the right religion, or which religion would you believe in if you were in the story? Like, would you be with like the Lord of Light because he can like make things happen?
The Lord of Light delivers.
He delivers.
He's the mailman.
The many-faced God is a little mysterious. That's kind of interesting. And then you have the seven. The seven are kind of my least favorite, but I do like the Godswood. I mean, it's interesting because it leaves you like an absolute wanderer and like trying to figure out these religions and what you in the story, what's really true, you don't even know.
I want a God who delivers on the supernatural, and B, if there's ice zombies coming, I want the fire, Lord of Light and fire. Like, I feel like he's really, that's where you put your money.
You got ice zombies coming, you might want the Lord of Light for that one.
I want the fire God too, because we are kind of headed into a little bit of a dualistic scenario. I think we're all rooting for the humans over the ice zombies, no matter how many Cersei blows
up. Speak for yourself, Will.
Yeah, the seven are they're a little bland. I feel feel like Martin's whole kind of supposed religious critique was probably just because he got bored of the 7 in book 3. It's exactly.
Well, he said he was
religion
trying
you take
to
up.
he was trying to do something. He said as a lapsed Catholic, the Trinity never made sense. So he was trying to sort of do something that parodied the Trinity. And he was thinking of medieval Catholicism and the Reformation tensions. And I mean, he's actually made statements about that. So but it's a loose echo. I mean, it's not a close
The
echo.
sparrows are not going to help you when the ice zombies come.
Yeah, what's a sparrow?
I mean, they might give soup to people, but they're not. There's no power there.
I think I do think it's been much more pronounced in the book in the show, especially this season, than you ever see it in the books. It's there and it's sort of entertaining. It's him kind of toying around with all these different kind of religious iconography. It doesn't feel like the show. It was. Will, I think you're right about Jonathan Pryce. Like, you couldn't have, that character was really enthralling, because if they'd had someone just ham it up as some sort of evil bishop, it would have been much less interesting than the guy we got, who was kind of this, mix of this Machiavellian a-hole and then just like a kind of a reformer type who's standing against like what we've noticed is just the most the game that they're playing is so dehumanizing and awful. And Will's always thought that perhaps the ice zombies or the others, the White Walkers, that represents a judgment on humanity, and that's actually what they're coming down to exact as the judgment of the 7. I guess that's kind of been dispelled this season. Is that right, Will?
I think it's probably been dispelled when you see the Children of the Forest creating them. But, I think, especially since Martin's a pacifist and I think was even a little bit of a hippie back in the day, at least with Vietnam War and that kind of thing. I mean, you could view it the same way you do nuclear weapon apocalypse, like a judgment on humanity, but humanity created it, right? So, or in this case, the Children of the Forest created it, but they did that as a weapon, as another method of control, as another way to assert power. And I think eventually that sort of power, that cycle of violence comes back and kind of hurts everyone. At least I think that's Martin's message in the books, and it seems to be coming through on the show as well.
It's interesting too that like how the religiosity in Game of Thrones, like some of the deities seem like Pope Benedict wrote this when he was Ratzinger. He's always Ratzinger to me, but he wrote this book called Truth and Tolerance, and in it there's a great essay about the old trend in religious studies, like was to think like in the 19th century, well, all religions are really the same kind of thing, and you got to they're all kind of the same kind of genus, or so like let's see the commonality in them. And then the kind of postmodern move has been, well, no, religions are completely isolated narratives, and there's no it's incommensurable. You can't really, you can't find that many common threads. And he says, well, I think what happens is, after animism and a kind of paganism where you just make the gods in your own image, he thinks one of 3 things happen, like enlightenment, like through human reason. So pre-Socratics are like this, and Platonic philosophy, and then you see in the Enlightenment as well in Europe, or it's this mystical identity where there tends to be like all reality is one, right? Like the East, or like prophetic revolution where a prophet comes, like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and says there is a God, but not the God that is the figment of our imagination, or it's the revelation is kind of over against us. The God is for us, but it's sort of rips down the kind of gods we make in our own image. And I think some of the deities in Game of Thrones seem like they're not just in the image of the people, and some seem like they're just the culture reified. Like the 7 strike me as, the mother, the father, the warrior. Like it just seems like, okay, we've taken our archetypes and culture, and even the water god, the god, of the Ironborn,
the drowned god.
The drowned god seems like, despite the baptism, like it also seems pretty anthropomorphic. Again, the guy, the Lord of Light, it seems like he's not really like, he's got some transcendence and
he
some
kills the kid every once in a while, but other than that, there's.
But see, some of the, I think
he'll keep
some
you
of the,
young. He'll keep
some
you
of some of the religiosity seems more mysterious and transcendent than others in the theological world.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, the Red God, I agree. It's much more appealing than the sort of anthropocentric modalism of the Seven for that reason. But the Red God, something about that transcendence, too, though, if there's not enough of a human element, if there's not an incarnation or some sort of better revelation than people looking into the fires, you can end up sacrificing a kid, because maybe that's part of the appeal of transcendence. It's so over against humanity that it'll make demands that seem terrible to us, but we can justify them because, it's the Red God is holy other, and the great other is very holy other. And I think you can just see that that over againstness can sort of turn bad when you don't have something anchoring it in the human world.
My friend, can I ask one final question of Will?
Absolutely.
Will, before we leave, where is Howland Reed? What's going on? Just give us it straight.
Well, I mean, from one book reader's perspective, Howland Reed just got blown up in the high sept, but I don't know. I mean, Greywater Watch moves, apparently, Dave, so it's really impossible for me to tell, but somewhere in the neck.
Somewhere in the neck. There you have it. There you have it, folks. We've solved that question for you.
Thank you for tuning in for a bonus episode where we said a lot of things about Game of Thrones. It was not a linear thing. It was a Zen circular, recorded on Zencaster. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Scott.